This picture shows the general layout of the air suspension unit. As you can see, we're facing towards the rear of the vehicle, and you can clearly see the arrows showing the right inlet and left inlet, which are part of a combined inlet valve assembly, which we're going to discuss in this video. This is a picture of the serviced inlet valve after it's been replaced into the air suspension unit. You can see that the right airbag and the left airbag pipe connections, and I think it's reversed from what I said later in the video. Just be careful that I got that wrong a bit later on. This is the twin inlet valve from a Hummer H2 2005 air suspension unit. As you can see, I've dismantled one of the sides here. You can see inside there is a tube, which I presume is a stainless steel tube with a iron core. On the end there is a little rubber sealing plunger. Then there are lots of O-rings inside. There's actually some right down deep inside here. I've pulled one of them out, which is this tiny little one here, and you'll find, if I can check, there's another one out. Now the inside of that hole is pretty grotty. There you go, there's a good picture there. That's exactly how it was. It's not bits that I've poured in, that's exactly what is in there. So I'm going to clean it up with IPA and put it all back together and then test it somehow. Whether or not we can actually use this solenoid, I have replaced it, but if you're getting leaks, it could be that air is escaping from the cylinder around these valves, which would be a common cause, because I guess if they age at the same rate, both sides would leak similarly, and it requires a nice seal. And whether or not it's wear on the little end of this plunger, you can see there is a bit of an indent on there. Whether or not that makes a difference, I don't know. But it could be wear on that, but it could just be contamination inside the mechanism. So I'm going to pull it all apart and clean it all up. I thought I'd done the other side, but I realized that this little washer here, or this little plastic molding, and this other one, they actually clip together. They don't move. It's the solenoid pulls. You can see there's also an O-ring on the back of the solenoid, but the solenoid pulls this plunger inside to release the gap. So that's the only moving part. The rest of it is just seals. So I've put the O-rings and the plastic parts in an ultrasonic cleaning bath filled with IPA. I'm going to give it 20 minutes and let it clean them. You may be asking yourself, why is he bother trying to clean this valve? Well, as far as I can see, I can't buy a new one. I've searched for the part numbers on there, which is two possible part numbers is, I can't read it while I'm videoing, but I'll look for the part numbers. I've also looked for the solenoid stickers on the inlet valves, and I can't find any match or anyone on eBay selling anything. So I'm working on the principle that, you know, if it is leaking, and it looks like it could well be leaking, because you can see where there's corrosion. These are the inlet valves which connect directly to the airbags. So that's the link to the airbags. Now if these leak from here, then the airbags will go down. Now these are a typical pneumatic fitting, and there are 3 of them on there. There's the main one, which is I think is the connected to the dryer, which links to the compressors. And as far as I can tell, the way that this works is that you operate the solenoid valves on the ones on the sides that you wish to vent or fill. So you turn the compressor on to fill, you leave the compressor off and turn the exhaust valve on to vent, which reverses the airflow through the dryer, probably takes away the moisture too. I'm not too sure, I'm not a pneumatic expert, but you can see that these valves are pretty well corroded. I mean, they are in a right state. Look at that. And the O-rings, if we can zoom in on one there, you can see the corrosion around the O-rings. Now, if any one of these leaks, it's a problem. In fact, one of my pipe retaining clips, you can see a bit of it's actually broken off somewhere. I don't know where that is. I didn't do it. That's how it came out. Now, these are quite... I struggled at first to get them out when I was going inside and pulling the little tangs around, but you don't need to do that. A pair of pliers inside just under the lip, a screwdriver just under the lip is enough to prise them out. They're only there as a retaining clip, and there's two O-rings in each side. So there's two on the larger bore and two on the smaller bores. I don't know whether it's 8mm and 6mm or 6mm and 4mm. I don't know what they are. But I'm going to put this whole thing in the ultrasonic cleaning bath and try to get those O-rings and the insides of those orifices nice and clean. I've already cleaned the O-rings that go inside here, so we're going to do this separately and see how well it cleans up. Right, these inlet valve O-ring assemblies have just come out of the ultrasonic cleaning bath, which was set to 30 degrees Celsius. I'm leaving them on here to dry out. It shouldn't take long. It's isopropyl alcohol, so it should evaporate pretty much. I can see there's still some crud on one of those O-rings, so I'll give them a clean as well, and try and make sure that everything is spotless, ready to be reassembled. I've put the main assembly stood upwards so that the inlet bore is at the bottom of the tank, leaving the electrical connectors out of the fluid. I'm just going to let that run for 20 minutes. I've increased the temperature slightly. Temperature aids with the drying, so we'll try, and also with the particle removing, so we'll keep it going and see how far we can get. I mean, it could be just a one-way ticket. This could be a total failure. Just don't know. But it might just work. I suspect it might work better than it did before. Here's the valve unit. As you can see, I've really had a good go at cleaning it. The most essential parts are the bits where the O-rings go into. Very difficult to get inside to remove the corrosion. And what we need is to have squeaky clean O-ring seals in these inlet valve cylinders. This thing's quite warm because I've had it in a very hot ultrasonic cleaning bath. So we've tried as hard as we can, or as hard as I could, to remove all of the contaminants out of this. I've also cleaned the little pneumatic collars that fit the pipes. Again, these are very difficult to get on the inside, but I've had a good go. They look pretty shiny. These small ones I use for the inlets. You can see one of them's actually corroded away on one of the 6 little lugs is actually broken, and they are rather fragile. Not sure if they're a standard pneumatic fitting, but I don't have any anyway, so I've done that. I'm going to put some silicone grease on the inlet valve, only on the inlet valves. That's the pipe valves connectors here, pipe connectors. So silicone grease on the pipe connectors, just because they're so badly corroded. And I'm also going to grease the screws. I found 4 new screws. One of them was really hard getting off. I'm going to put silicone grease on there just in case we ever have to do it again. This is probably a one-time only service. So I'm going to put this back together. Right, I'm going to reassemble this inlet valve assembly. I'm not going to do it on camera because it involves a little bit of silicone grease, which I'm going to put on every single O-ring. I'm going to put a smear of silicone grease on. I think it's necessary. Also, one thing worth mentioning is that the solenoid has got bushes that are tapped, and so is the housing. I suspect that one of them has to move, but it means you've got to get it pretty well mated and aligned before you start putting the screws in. Also, before you put any O-rings, just inspect to make sure that everything is squeaky clean. The two solenoid valves have been put back together in exactly the same electrical orientation as they were before. Fortunately, I took a picture before I took it apart, but it's worth writing on an identifier. I think that is the right solenoid, which I've written right on there, because when it sits in the vehicle, it's that way around. If I'm got the back of the car to your right, so that's correct. My hand is holding the right hand side, which would be that solenoid. I buzzed it out electrically, so I know it goes there, and I confirmed it with a picture, so that's right. Okay, so all of the O-rings have been put back together. I am going to test it actually on a power supply in a bit, since I know which way round the wires go. It should be easy for me to work out which is positive and negative. Obviously, if you get it the wrong way, I don't know. It might go either way. It depends if it's just if it's a magnetic core or an iron core. I didn't actually check, but we'll carry on. Here is the completely reassembled solenoid. Still bits of dirt. Can't believe it after it's been in a wash. Still dropping out, but you can see I've reassembled all of the pipe fittings, put them all back together. Quite easy to get them out actually. It's not that difficult to actually work on. It's a lot tougher. The hardest part was getting the screws out. I wrecked the screws getting them out. Had to cut a cross cut in one of the screws to get it out, as you can see, and that one just was never coming out. But having said that, you can also see that the plastic is split under the pressure, probably vibration of the vehicle. I wouldn't be surprised if they're not all exactly the same. But that valve should now work, and I'm going to prove that if I can with a power supply. The pneumatics is a little bit more tricky to resolve, but it should work. Right, I've got this hooked up to a power supply which I've set to 12 volts. I've tested both sides, and by blowing up the air inlet, you can check that one side is closed and the other's opened, and it does work. And you can hear the click of the solenoid as it operates. It takes 1.2 amps when it's running, and obviously nothing when it's not drawing any current. There you go, a nice click. Sounds very solid. Whether or not we've got good seals, I don't know. That time will tell. But as far as I can see, this solenoid is in much better condition than when I took it off, and there's a very good chance it's going to work.